pleasure for all of us to meet today. And it's a great privilege for me to introduce Professor Joseph Stephenson. He is my close friend. He's a close friend not only of mine, but a close friend of Ukraine, who supports us very much since the beginning of the full-scale aggression and even before. He is the professor of Abilene Christian University in the United States of America. He graduated from Yale University in 1985, and then he graduated, he got a master's degree and PhD degree at the Connecticut. And today we'll have an opportunity to listen to his lecture. But before it, I have a great honor to give the floor to my colleague from the university that is organizing this event, because probably you have read, you know, that this event opens the important All-Ukrainian Conference, or All-Ukrainian Project, it's better to say. So I'm very glad to introduce Marianna Станіславівна Чернявська to greet all of us. Пані Мар'яно, ми запрошуємо вас до слова.
Дуже дякую. Добрий вечір, шановні колеги. Добрий вечір, наші шановні гості. І я хочу сказати, що сьогодні в нашому університеті такий незвичайний день, тому що мені сьогодні вдруге вже доводиться відкривати заходи. Сьогодні вранці я о 10-й годині відкривала урочисто наші богатирьовські читання, на яких зібралися музикознавці, теоретики з України і з різних країн світу. І ввечері ось у нас другий захід, тобто наша музика і театр, можна сказати, йдуть пліч-опліч в своїх проєктах. Я дуже рада, що сьогодні український театр у світовому контексті є такою широкою темою і дуже актуальною, тому що коли ми виборюємо свою незалежність, коли ми виборюємо свою індивідуальність і хочемо заявити все ж таки в світі, хто ми є, да, я думаю, що світ вже бачить, хто ми є, да, то звісно, що українське мистецтво, воно є на першому плані в всіх цих речах. Тому я дуже вдячна пані Юлії за її організацію, за її таку активність і всьому нашому театральному факультету університету. І хочу побажати всім дуже плідної роботи і цікавих зустрічей. Тим більше, що виходячи з програми нашого проєкту, да, цей проєкт буде дуже великим, він буде тривати майже цілий місяць. Да, тобто він неймовірно масштабний і тут будуть дуже різні заходи. Я дуже рада цьому, що ми будемо представляти і навчально-методичний матеріал, і наукові монографії, і будуть лекції наших шановних гостей. Ну і взагалі багато питань таких дуже актуальних для сьогоднішнього дня. Тобто я ще раз вас вітаю, шановні друзі, шановні колеги, наші шановні гості, і бажаю вам плідної роботи. Ну і хочу від всієї адміністрації вам все це побажати. Дякую за увагу.
Thank you very much, dear Mariana. I'd like to tell some words especially for Joe. Joe, you know that today we are beginning the very interesting project that includes not only activities closely connected with theater, but also with music. And today Mariana has already opened or started the conference dealing with music in the morning. And we do believe that we will have our event dealing with theater successfully, because theater plays an important role in the present day situation during the full-scale aggression. You probably you have felt it, and everybody has felt it since the 2022 February. And today she mentions that this project will last for a month, Am I right? Місяць буде тривати проєкт, да? Десь орієнтовно майже місяць. It's about month and it will include different events connected not only with theater but also with music and different arts, and also a lot of methodological and practical manuals will be represented during in the framework of this event. And so probably you'll be interested in this project, and maybe you will join it again in other days if it's interesting for you. So I have
Why
an
not?
honor to invite you on the behalf of the university today. And now I'd like to give the floor to Yulia Shchukina, who is the head of the chair, that very chair that is organizing this beautiful event. Юлія Петрівна, you're welcome.
Так, дякую. Пані Наталія, я дуже коротко хочу представити партнерів нашого міжнародного науково-творчого проєкту, який буде тривати з 2 по 30 квітня. І щиро сподіваємося на те, що нічого не завадить нам в наш непростий
I'm
час.
sorry, Юля, can I translate? Because
Так.
so Yulia likes to introduce the partners of this project, which will go on since the 2nd of April till the 3rd of April, and she hopes that nothing will spoil our game. Okay?
І я хочу заанонсувати, що в нас 16 подій в межах цього проєкту. Це будуть заходи англійською або українською мовою.
There will be 16, I'm sorry, there will be 16 events which are included into this project. And some of them will be in English, some of them in Ukrainian.
І я хочу сказати про наших надзвичайно важливих для цього проєкту партнерів, подякувати всім нашим колегам, а також інституціям, які вони представляють.
She would like to greet all the partners and to emphasize their role in this project and gratitude them and thank them for their activities and joining to this project. Які інститути?
Власне, проєкт «Український театр у світовому контексті» проводить кафедра театрознавства Харківського національного університету мистецтв.
So the project that is called, once again, назву ще раз.
Ukrainian Theater in Global Context.
Context, okay? So Ukrainian Theater in Global Context is organized by the chair, headed by Yulia Shchukina. It is the chair of theater studies, театрознавства.
Так, також співорганізатором цього проєкту виступає кафедра ЮНЕСКО з питань збереження традицій в культурі та мистецтві Харківського національного університету мистецтв.
So the chair of UNESCO from this very university is the co-organizer of the project.
Власне, сьогодні почесна місія відкрити наш проєкт у пана Джо Стефенсона, який представляє Abilene University з Техасу.
I suppose that Joe understands that today we have a great honor to start this process with the help of you, and you are the representative of the Abilene University, Abilene Christian University, so you're also the partner.
Так, Інститут проблем сучасного мистецтва України при Національній академії мистецтв України.
So the next structure is the Institute of the Problems of Contemporary or Modern Arts in Ukraine. It's the structure of the National Academy of Arts, Ukrainian National Academy of Arts.
Громадське об'єднання Unima Ukraine.
And non-governmental organization that is called Unima Ukraine.
І Український Шекспірівський центр.
And Ukrainian Shakespeare Center.
І, власне, я хочу підкреслити, тут дуже велика спільнота саме учасників Українського Шекспірівського центру, слухачів заходів цього центру, що цей наш проєкт також партнерствує з Днями Шекспіра в Україні у 2026 році.
So Julia emphasizes the fact that this project is a part of our Shakespeare's Day in Ukraine 2026 project. And on my behalf, і від мого імені я б хотіла запросити всіх дорогих театрознавців приєднуватися до наших майбутніх подій, які будуть розгортатися в рамках Днів Шекспіра в Україні. So, Joe, I'll be happy to invite you and all the colleagues from theater community, our partners in this project, to participate in our following events in Shakespeare Days in Ukraine.
Дякую, пані Наталії. Я можу тільки представити навзаєм вас і сказати про тій частині нашої аудиторії, яка з театрального факультету, з нашої спільноти, що модерує наш сьогоднішній захід, і за це величезна вдячність пані Наталії Торкут, власне, президент цього українського шекспірівського центру, доктор філологічних наук, професор, академік вищої школи.
Thank you very much. Yulia Shukina has just introduced me, but I would like to mention some words to the chair and to the university, Kharkiv National University of Arts, named after Ivan Petrovich Kotlarevsky. It was a great honor for me to communicate with this university many years ago, and since that period of time we are close partners. Yulia is the member of the jury of our Shakespeare contest that is called All Ukrainian Shakespeare Contest of Students Research and Creative Projects. Я хочу подякувати пані Юлії, з якою ми познайомилися декілька років тому, і вона зараз входить в журі українського шекспірівського конкурсу разом з багатьма моїми колегами, зокрема з пані професоркою Іриною Павленко, яку бачу, може когось іще не бачу, вибачайте, якщо не називаю. And now I would like to greet this very university because last year and this year as well, the students of this university are the winners of our contest. І я б хотіла привітати Харківський університет з тим, що їхні студенти і в минулому році, і в цьому році вийшли в переможці цього конкурсу. Moreover, two students, unfortunately I don't remember their names, maybe Yulia will help me to proclaim the names here, are invited to the Craiova Shakespeare Festival, which this festival gives them the opportunity to visit to Romania, to be there during 10 days of the festival, to choose all the performances they would like to be present, to watch, to participate in intellectual or research or scientific events of the festival that is called Summer School for Students, for theater students. And it seems to me that it's a good idea for them to join their future profession in such a specific way. Я б хотіла привітати двох студенток, які вийшли в цьому році, представниці Харківського національного університету мистецтв імені Івана Петровича Котляревського, стали переможцями, війшли до складу переможців Всеукраїнського шекспірівського конкурсу імені Віталія Кейса. І як переможці вони отримали запрошення від дуже шановної структури. Це Крайовський шекспірівський фестиваль. А в шекспірознавстві ми знаємо, що це один із найпрестижніших європейських фестивалів. Свого часу Крайова отримала статус від ЮНЕСКО, статус культурного центру Європи саме завдяки цьому фестивалю. І ці дві студентки мають можливість поїхати, їм обіцяють компенсувати витрати на дорогу, проживання, дати квитки на всі вистави. Можете собі уявити, там понад 100 театрів, вони отримують квитки на ті вистави, які вони оберуть, і водночас будуть учасниками театральної літньої школи, де будуть різні заходи, пов'язані з їхньою майбутньою професією. А тепер, Юлія Петрівна, скажіть мені, хто у нас герої? Щоб я нічого
Олександра Новік і Олександра Тімашова, перший магістерський курс.
І вони продемонстрували такі прекрасні результати. Тобто, я б хотіла сказати, що Шекспіра кінця йому немає. І це буде таким, з моєї точки зору, успішним прикладом нашого співробітництва. I do believe that the participation of these two students in Craiova Festival, in Craiova Shakespeare Festival this year, will be a kind of example of fruitful collaboration between our structures, between Kharkiv National University of Arts, named after Ivan Petrovich Kotlarevsky, and Ukrainian Shakespeare Center, and this initiative will go on. І так, ми Здається, у нас немає більше вітальних слів. Якщо я не помиляюся, то ми надаємо слово професору Джо Стівенсону. Я б хотіла його представити і сказати декілька слів. Ну, по-перше, я безмежно вдячна Джо за його підтримку України. I'm very grateful for your support of our country and for money you donated to Ivano-Frankivsk Shakespeare Festival or Ivano-Frankivsk National Theatre for volunteering. I know that they have bought the car for militaries, and it is really very, very important for us. I also would like to mention the fact that Professor Joseph Stephenson is an expert specialist in different spheres closely connected with literature and Shakespeare. In particular, he has published a lot of articles dealing on analysis of Shakespeare plays such as Antony and Cleopatra, Henry VI, Richard II, and some others. He also analyzes not only as a literary expert but as well as a theater expert the texts of Shakespeare's contemporaries such as Ben Jonson, Christopher Marlowe, John Dryden. And the sphere of his particular love, as far as I know, is the comedy of restoration that is not very popular in Ukraine, but nobody knows, maybe in future it will be staged even here, even in this part of the world where this play looks a little bit old. We know that we don't know the author. We know that it's not so talented as Shakespeare's plays, but maybe Joe will be able to discover something unique about these plays. So it's the Dutch Lady. It's a very specific comedy of the Restoration that is a sphere of particular life of Joe Stephenson. So today we have such a brilliant opportunity to listen to my esteemed colleague, and I do believe that after his presentation that you can see on your screen, we'll be able to have a discussion. Don't worry, it's quite possible to ask your questions in a written form or orally in Ukrainian or in English. It doesn't matter. So all of us are colleagues here, and I do believe that we will get a delight and enjoyment during this presentation. So, dear Professor Joseph Stephenson, the floor is yours.
Oh, дякую дуже. Before we get started, Natalia, can you put the slide presentation on your computer?
What
Can
would
you
you
put it
like?
on the Zoom meeting?
If you want, I can share my screen, but if not, you can share your screen. What is most suitable for you?
Well, the matter is, here I am with only my laptop and no other screen. So I realized that I cannot, and I was not able to print my lecture here at the hotel. They were not able to help me with printing it this morning, and therefore it's only 10 a.m. in Colorado, and therefore I will have to read the lecture off my screen. And thus,
Okay.
if you could share the slides, it would be great. And I will tell you when to
Okay.
go.
I need some moments to share the screen to
Yeah, that's
download
fine.
it on my computer. Just a moment, please.
That is fine.
So we'll have.
It's also fine that I can begin the talk without the slides. There's, a couple of minutes before I really need the slides, but
Okay.
however, the first slide
It
does
seems to me
have.
that we have this opportunity, and in a moment we'll have your screen. Okay.
There we go. There we go. Great. All right. Так. Zaczynajmy. Dobry wieczór всім. Дякую, Наталія, за знайомство і дякую, Юлія, за запрошення. Я дуже радий знову бути сьогодні з Україною, і я сподіваюся знову бути в Україні Sioholita Sheraz Daibol. Dobre, that's about all the Ukrainian I can speak today. I am... Yeah,
But your Ukrainian is brilliant. You impressed us very much.
Дякую. Я можу трошки українською мовою. Але сьогодні that's about all I can speak in Ukrainian today. I am in the middle of a very busy week. I greet you from the Shakespeare Association of America annual conference this year in Denver, Colorado.
It seems to me that all our participants are able to understand in English. Maybe it is difficult for some persons to speak English, but they are trying to understand everything. So we need a translation because it makes our procedure too long.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then if there are any questions, or I believe there's a recording so people can listen to it again or ask for help in translating later, perhaps. Do you want to just say that in Ukrainian? If there's any problems, you can ask questions or maybe seek to translate it later with the recording.
So we may start, and I do believe that if something happens, extraordinary happens,
Okay.
we'll have an opportunity to correct the situation.
Okay, very good.
And you may
All right.
only mention that next slide for me to change.
Okay. All right, then I will, then that is great. So I am in Denver, Colorado for this big meeting of Shakespeare scholars in this country, and actually from around the world. There are many people here from Great Britain and Canada. I believe there are some here from other places in Europe as well. Well, I know there are some from other places in Europe as well. Perhaps some people that are known to some of you at this meeting as well. So it's a busy day, as I said. In fact, 2 hours after this meeting ends, I will meet with my own seminar here at the Shakespeare Association of America conference to talk about what we call original practices in performing Shakespeare. That's a term that's been used. I am saying that we should probably use a different term, such as historically informed practices, but in any case, it refers to the way that Shakespeare might have looked, might have sounded, might have existed 400 years ago during Shakespeare's lifetime. For example, we talk a little bit about the stage itself, how that existed, music relevant to your topic of the seminar as it continues, lighting, rehearsal, many other things. And I will say 2 words more about that later. But concerning the subject of this talk, as you can see on the slide, there's my title again. It was my great privilege last summer to attend the Ukrainian Shakespeare Festival in Ivano-Frankivsk. I saw a lot of great productions from the National Theater there and from visiting theater groups as well. As I spoke with various theater professionals and became a bit more familiar with the Shakespeare in performance in Ukraine, I began to notice a word I was very familiar with, written or spoken, dramaturg, or in English, dramaturg. In fact, there was a period when I'm very familiar with this word because there was a period when I was known around the state of Texas for being a dramaturg. Back when Twitter was still Twitter and not X, my nickname on Twitter was Joe Dramaturg. However, as I spoke with theater professionals at the Ukrainian Shakespeare Festival last summer, I quickly became aware that, although these 2 words look and sound almost alike in English and Ukrainian, they do not mean the same thing in both languages. Of course, there are many words like that between languages. We sometimes call them false friends or something like that to distinguish, to caution that these words do not mean the same thing. Watch out. I know many examples of that, but I can't think of them right now, but you know them as well.
Magazine, for example. In
Magazine.
Ukrainian, magazine is shop. So it's a typical false friend of the translator.
Yes, very good. Very good. Magazine in English, it's a journal. It's a little paper book that you can read. Or it's a storage of ammunition, by the way. I found that in other European languages, there are other meanings of the word dramaturg as well. I don't need to tell the people at this meeting what dramaturg means in Ukrainian, but in case anyone is listening who prefers English, I have found that the word dramaturg is usually used to designate a person who works with logistics and organization for a theater and for a director. In many languages, I have seen a word that looks and sounds like dramaturg to mean director or playwright or person who takes a book and adapts it into a play. And indeed, in Ukrainian, I believe it can also mean playwright from time to time. But in English, both in the United States and in Great Britain, the word dramaturg has taken on quite a different meaning. A dramaturg, as we use the word, is someone with advanced knowledge and training in dealing with the text of a play, whether a play of Shakespeare or any other writer, really. This job, especially if one person is employed by a company to handle this task, perhaps one person along with some assistants if it's a very large theater, the job is sometimes called literary manager or even head of research. Very often, this job is filled by a person with expertise in literary studies. Natalia was very kind to say that I have expertise in literary studies and theater studies. I should mention, though, that all of my degrees, all of my official expertise is in literary studies, although I have studied theater as well. But those terms, literary manager and head of research, apply to someone with literary knowledge. Sometimes I use the word consultant. I think you have the same word in Ukrainian now, adapted from English. It's used more often in business, but sometimes when I am talking about the job of a dramaturg to non-specialists, I say a consultant or a researcher. Thus, though a dramaturg can work on any text and may be expected to work with all of the texts that a particular theater performs during a season, a dramaturg is more often employed to work on productions of older playwrights like Shakespeare for obvious reasons. And for the rest of this talk, I will assume we are talking about Shakespeare and using Shakespeare examples. First and foremost, then, the dramaturg would be expected. Next, please. First and foremost, the dramaturg would be expected to bring in knowledge on the expertise.
I'm sorry, just a moment.
Dobre. Aha, now yes, you have actually been seeing me for a time. Now you can see these slides. There's the title.
Three common areas, yeah?
Yeah, that's good. If you want to, I mean, we can also see the slides on the side. If you select something, what does it say? If you could select something that says slideshow, then you'll only see the one big slide, but it doesn't matter. It's fine if people see the extra slides on the side as well.
It seems to me that our people are used for this tradition, so nothing happens.
Excellent. There we go. So first and foremost, the dramaturg would be expected to bring in knowledge and expertise on the language that Shakespeare used, with special attention to any rare words, old-fashioned words, words that have changed meanings over the years, as well as references to situations and other works. Perhaps in a Shakespeare play, there are references to Greek myths or some passages in the Bible that may be obscure. Second, the dramaturg should be able to share information about any historical circumstances surrounding the play, as well as any references to historical events within the play. Third, since Shakespeare's plays have been around for over 400 years, some research on the history of the play's interpretation, both in theory and performance, is useful. Those are the three main areas of knowledge, as you can see on the screen, that I expect to use when I am working as a dramaturg. I'm now going to go into a little bit of detail about each of these. In doing so, I will begin to demonstrate the kind of thing that I might present to a director and cast members in the first meeting before rehearsals begin. So I'm not simply talking about being a dramaturg, but I'm somewhat giving you an example of the kind of thing that I might say, that I might share when I work with a play, with a theater company. So regarding text and language, it is certainly expected that a dramaturg will be able to answer questions about the meaning of words. Of course, very few people have all of these meanings ready at the front of their minds. Nowadays, there are resources on the internet to help find the meanings, and we, of course, have to be very careful nowadays when we use the internet. An internet search that uses artificial intelligence often brings up incorrect information, or if not exactly incorrect, it may give incomplete information, or it may give a different usage of a word. There are a few books out there that offer specialized help with the meaning of Shakespeare's words.
Yes.
Uh,
Shall I change the slide to
yeah,
show the ardent Shakespeare?
actually, we will see those books in a minute. Also, now, yeah, please change the slide to the next one. Also, I'm talking about some specialized books in a minute because the slide is in the wrong place, but that's fine. Another extremely useful tool is an excellent scholarly edition of a play, such as the Ardent Shakespeare third series. It's important to use the third series, as older editions are not as good. Actually, the first 2 or 3 volumes of the Ardent Shakespeare fourth series, next slide, are already out. And the general editor of the fourth series is Tiffany Stern from the Shakespeare Institute. Perhaps some of you know her work.
Yes, we have heard her lecture.
Yeah.
So we had an opportunity and happiness to communicate with Tiffany. Thank you.
Great. So Tiffany is doing a great job as the general editor of the fourth series of Ardent Shakespeare. And these scholarly editions have notes about anything you could possibly wonder about. Often the notes take up more space on the page than the text itself. And since I'm not in Abilene right now, I would have taken a picture of, a page of a play and showed it to you to show, maybe half the page or less is text, and then half the page or more is notes and explanations, which is very useful. Another good resource, and here I'm going to try to share my page, my screen here in a minute. This good resource is available online, and it's called the New Variorum Shakespeare, which is currently being built online by Robert Stagg and his team at Texas A&M University, because Texas, of course, is a great place to study Shakespeare. Oh, actually, now that Natalia has the next slide up there, I meant to say this earlier, and that is the fact that no, this is good. Back to where you were. Yeah. These specialized books can be very useful. You see the yellow book here by David Crystal and Ben Crystal, called Shakespeare's Words, a Glossary. Very, very useful work for looking at the meanings and, by the way, the pronunciations of Shakespeare's words. Also, the red book in the middle is called All the Words on Stage. You see that it's a bit of a pun. Shakespeare's famous line, all the world's a stage, but this book is called All the Words on Stage and gives just a very brief idea of how to say the word and a brief meaning of the word. Unfortunately, it doesn't give all the shades of meaning that a word might have, but if you're just looking for pronunciation, it's good. And in fact, right now, if you can read that third image on the screen, it's red and black. It is an app that you can get on your phone called Audio. Ooh, I'm going to blow my screen up. I don't think I'm affecting your view here. Audio Shakespeare Pronunciation App. That's what it's called. Audio Shakespeare Pronunciation App. And just, look on the web for that, or look in your phone for that app, Audio Shakespeare Pronunciation App, and there you go. Because when authors try to write down the pronunciation, it can be confusing, especially for people from another language, etc. So that's a very useful tool. Now, like I said, I'm going to try to share my screen here in just a second. I'm talking about Robert Stagg's project, The New Variorum Shakespeare. A Variorum edition means that it contains notes and comments from various editors through the years. The editors of the Variorum volumes don't simply give the meaning of a word, but they list the comments of earlier editors who talk about all the subtleties of meaning of a given word or phrase. Okay. You can find the New Variorum Shakespeare at the address newvariorumshakespeare.org. I will drop that in the chat in a minute. Only 2 plays are ready right now, A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Winter's Tale. I will show you in a second. It's a huge project to construct a Variorum edition because you have to show all the different changes in interpretation through the years, and you have to find the quotes and the links to all of these editions through the years. So it's really huge. And Robert Stagg is a young scholar, so good for him because it will take decades to do this. So we're going to take a peek at a few lines from A Midsummer Night's Dream as I put this website up here. Perhaps it's supposed to be right here at the top of my stack of windows, right? Hold on just a second. Hold on 1 second and I will share my screen.
So it's necessary for me to stop the presentation to give you the possibility to share your screen. Am I right?
Yes, I think so. Sorry about that.
So you're welcome.
Yeah. All right. So as I'm going to, let's see. First, I have to find the Zoom tool for sharing screen, which oh, there it
At the
is.
bottom of
Okay.
your panel, there is a
Yeah,
special
I see it.
square with an arrow to share.
Mm-hmm.
While Joe is working
Yes.
with the system, I'd like to mention that the information which you have just suggested is extremely important for all of us. It's a kind of reference for us, for our lectures, where to find the pronunciation of different Shakespeare words, and this very app for audio Shakespeare pronunciation is of great importance for all of us. I have never heard about it. Thank you.
Okay, well, this may not work. My computer is demanding that I use security settings to get here. I think it might be important for me to share this with you. So, Natalia, feel free to
Share.
talk for another moment while I work on this for a second.
Okay, okay. We
Well,
can for people this information just after the lecture. If you send us the link or something that is necessary, we can share it with all the participants of today's lecture. So it's not a problem.
yeah,
Sometimes it
I'd
happens.
forgotten to deal with this earlier, and indeed, it might be impossible for me to
Maybe
share my
sometimes it depends
screen
upon the system.
due to my
I can
university
stop
security
sharing
system.
again,
Yes.
but
So, oh, yes. So, well, I know what I can do, which is put the link in the chat for this, just for the new Variorum Shakespeare in general. And Natalia, I know you are acquainted with our friend Robert Stagg. Indeed, you have given a lecture for his organization recently.
yes, and I can show the screen to everybody. Just a moment.
Oh, well, yes, you can share it. There we go. Of course.
Yes.
So at the first screen there, which is, just the main website. And then after that, so that's what it looks like. And now, Natalia, if you click on A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I think is so right now it's only two plays, The Winter's Tale and A Midsummer Night's Dream available. And I think A Midsummer Night's Dream is more familiar. So we will use an example from that very quickly. Yeah, just it's no.
Unfortunately, it
Oh, yeah.
doesn't work. I see, but it doesn't work. You see? Maybe because I'm not in the system. Maybe it's necessary to join the system here.
I don't think so, but that's very interesting. Huh.
How to do digital
Yeah.
connections, or maybe we need some time to join or we can see something how to digital New Variorum Shakespeare, but
No, well, it seems to me that you do not have to
Welcome.
join it.
This video will provide a brief overview of the digital New Variorum edition of Shakespeare.
So they have like a manual. У них є тут інструкція, якою ми можемо скористатися. Тут Джо запропонував нам подивитися інформацію про одну із п'єс, але вона не працює в таку живу, тобто нам спочатку треба, мабуть, завантажити цю систему, а потім ми матимемо можливість до цього долучитися. I'm sorry, Joe, you may go on.
Okay. Well, I suppose it is possible that at Texas A&M they are. Ooh, click on Variorum Reader. Try that. There we go. Okay. Here we go. We finally figured it out. Okay. Now, if you please, in the center of the screen, scroll down. Don't click, just scroll. Just move down the middle of the screen. Yeah. Okay. Now, good. Keep going a little bit longer. Okay, so stop. Go backwards a little bit. And a little bit. Okay, good. Here we are. So, just go a little bit further. And you don't have to worry about the right-hand side. All right, so you can see at line 29, what is that number? 24? Woo! At line 24, there's a stage direction that says, enter Aegeus and his daughter Hermia, and Lysander and Helena and Demetrius. Click on the yellow words and Helena, please.
Yellow word, what do you mean? In the right-hand column, or where?
And Helena, right there. The word has been highlighted in yellow. It's very lovely that Robert has chosen the Ukrainian colors. Just click on it, yeah.
And Helena, to the right. Дивимось з правої сторони екрану про Гелену.
Так. So Robert has wisely chosen Ukrainian colors for the to design this website blue and yellow, so it's perfect. So there's an interesting note here that in the first folio, that's the complete works of Shakespeare published by his colleagues in 1623. In the folio, it doesn't say Enter Helena, but in both of the quartos, the cheap paperback editions, shall we say, the cheap small editions that were published in Shakespeare's lifetime, it does say and Helena. So that's interesting, and it might be useful to think about whether Helena does come in here or not. Good. And also, by clicking that, it brought the text on the right and the text in the center together, so that's good. Now, the next line is the line of Hermia's father, Aegeus. That's line 26, I think. Yeah. It says, "Happy be Theseus, our renowned duke." And Theseus says, "Thanks, good Aegeus. What's the news with thee?" Okay, click on Aegeus. Next line, Aegeus. By the way, for some, this new Variorum Shakespeare is in old spelling. This is the text of the first folio exactly as it was printed in 1623. As you see, the word thanks has an E in it, Thankes, which is, of course, not the way we spell it nowadays. But, so that's good. You get to see that as well. So it's it's a lot of interesting information. And when you click on the word Aegeus, you see that we have notes from previous scholars. As we said, the Variorum gives us the notes that previous scholars have said. So Delius, in his edition from 1859, says, in Shakespeare, Aegeus is trisyllabic. It has 3 syllables. Aegeus accented on the second syllable. And that's important because of the iambic pentameter. I have often heard, and indeed there's a very good film directed by Max Reinhardt, who was German. And in that film, he pronounces the name Aegeus, which is unfortunately incorrect. And then it says, see this volume, TLN, it stands for this volume. I can't remember exactly why, but click on number 124, for example. No.
124?
No. We're over in the right-hand side in the yellow notes. Yeah, click TLN 124, and there it will show you the next time this name is spoken in the play. And it also, you can tell by just reading the pentameter, right? And come, Aegeus, you shall go with me. So it has to be Aegeus, not, sorry, Max Reinhardt, not Aegeus. So that's very useful. It will give you the other times in the play this name is used in case you want to see whether the name is sometimes pronounced differently. And then there's even a note for possible associations of the name. See here, don't click on it, but if we were to click on that, it would give lots of possible echoes and meanings, etc., etc. And then that's just on the pronunciation of the name. Next, we've got other questions and comments about that line. So as you can see, it is very, very, very complete. So it's a very good resource once more plays are ready. Right now, it's only for A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Winter's Tale. But as far as I know, Robert keeps saying that 3 or 4 more plays will be ready very soon. So, all right, we can stop showing that now because that was a great example of that website. Thank you for sharing that. And I will need to talk to my uni about changing some of its very stringent security standards or allowing me to bypass them in order to share my screen in Zoom, because that's a very common a very common thing that one needs to do sometimes, isn't it? But anyway, so back to looking at my slides, if you don't mind, Natalia. We're talking
Number
about
5.
the pronunciation, and we've talked about the New Variorum Shakespeare as a great help with that. Now, having been speaking about the meaning and pronunciation of words here for 10 minutes, I realize that what I'm saying about meanings and pronunciation is all related to working on productions of Shakespeare in English. I realize that most of the productions you are working on are in Ukrainian. However, you might consider that it's a great idea to look at the English text as you are going to perform in Ukrainian. You can say, now let's see if this translation is exactly accurate. You can look at different shades of meaning in the English text. There may be a word that can mean two things in English, but the Ukrainian translator was only able to reproduce one of those. So you might be interested in seeing what other meanings are there. It can help a director or actor to decide what to emphasize or what emotion or motivation that a character has. Who knows? Maybe you will be working on your own translation sometime as well, or you will be doing at least some small speeches or even a whole play in English in the future. But moving right along from that topic into the second topic, historical circumstances surrounding the play. Let's consider Shakespeare's Macbeth from 1606. By the way, you can go backwards one. You can still be backwards again, I think. And back one more, I think. No? Have we seen that already? Oh, yeah, this is good. So 1606 is the date of Macbeth. And you might be thinking, well, how am I supposed to know that? Well, the best way to know that is to look at this 9-volume set of books, this catalog of British drama by Martin Wiggins. The name Martin Wiggins is on the cover. It also mentions Catherine Richardson. She has helped with getting the information from the book into the online version of the text. But the ideas are all those of brilliant scholar Martin Wiggins, who has retired from the Shakespeare Institute by this time. Unfortunately for the Institute, but good for Martin. He's able to do a lot more of his research now. As I alluded earlier, the books are great. They're very expensive, and I don't know how you're going to get copies of them. If, and I know this is also a big if you can get access to the books published by Oxford University Press, then that can be extremely useful. You can access this book digitally if you have access to Oxford University Press books from your library. If you don't, maybe we'll work on this for a future project. Okay, and also, in case you don't have either the physical book or the digital access, now please, next slide. You can just look at this handy little chart. I know that it's very small, what you can see there in the big chart, but I will put it in the chat here in a moment. If I forget, then remind me later. And you can all grab it from the chat. It's fine. This is not copyrighted. It's from a newspaper article some years ago. Martin prepared this for an interview with a newspaper when the new Oxford Shakespeare came out in 2017. And there was a renewed interest in the idea that Shakespeare had actually collaborated with some other authors on some of his plays. The new Oxford Shakespeare really emphasized that when they released their new edition of the plays. But some people were getting the wrong impression that, well, maybe Shakespeare didn't write very much because these other authors were working there. But in this graphic, you can see that Shakespeare, represented by the yellow color, did in fact write the vast majority of the words in the plays we associate with him, although the words of other authors are found here and there in some of the plays. So in the in the close-up on the right, you can see that it's all Shakespeare in Othello. It's all Shakespeare in King Lear. In the present text we have of Macbeth, Shakespeare wrote the play, but some years later, Thomas Middleton revised the play for another performance, and he added in the pink bits that you see there. You also see that he wrote some of the pink bits of Measure for Measure near the top of the close-up. But anyway, Shakespeare wrote most of those words. However, what's also incredibly useful are those dates on the left-hand side. Since Martin is, if I do say so, he's the top specialist in dating Shakespeare in the world, and so he could not resist including the dates in the chart, which is very lucky for us. Also, on the right-hand side, he includes, there's another number there, which I think is the number of lines in the play, not the number of words. It gives you an idea of the length of the play, by the way. When I drop that in the chat, you'll be able to play with it as you go along. But the dating of the plays is right there. And that's really all you need to just get the year of every Shakespeare play. So I'll drop that in the chat here in a minute. So 1606, the play Macbeth deals with, of course, the assassination of a king. What does this have to do with 1606? Well, the topic of assassinating a king was very relevant in 1606. Just a few months earlier, in November 1605, you remember that Guy Fawkes and a bunch of his Catholic friends tried to blow up the entire parliament while the king was giving a speech there. We call this the Gunpowder Plot. Shakespeare directly refers to the Gunpowder Plot and what came after in the Porter scene. Next slide now. Next slide now. So this is, what does it say there? Act 3, Scene 3 or something like that. Yeah, Act 2, Scene 3 of Macbeth. And the porter is the man who opens the gate for people. The porter is still drunk from the previous night's partying when Macduff knocks on the gate at 4 o'clock in the morning. And he's woken up by the loud, he's drunk and asleep, and he's woken up by the loud knocking at the gate. The porter entertains himself by imagining that he is not opening the gate of Inverness Castle, but the gate of hell. He lets in various people who are stereotypically known as cheaters or sinners. You see that he names what? He names a farmer who hanged himself because of a problem in the market for him to sell his goods. And in those days, suicide would have been considered a sin to send you to hell. Next, he says, knock, knock, who's there? We have a lot of jokes in English which begin, the first person says, knock, knock, and the interlocutor says, who's there? I don't know if you have any such jokes, but this is where it comes from, by the way, Shakespeare and Macbeth. Knock, knock, who's there? In the name of some other devil whose name I don't remember. Faith, says the porter, here's an equivocator that could swear on both sides of the scale against either scale and committed treason enough for God's sake, but could not equivocate himself into heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator. This long, difficult word, equivocator, Natalia, do you know this? Do you have a similar word in Ukrainian?
No, I will try to read it in Ukrainian in order to give us the possibility to understand what is happening here. So, і так ми маємо другий акт, третю сцену, стукіт за сценою, входить воротар. Оце так гупає, навіть воротар припеклі впрів би. Тільки й знай ключем крутити. Знову стукіт за сценою. Гупай собі, гупай, хто там? В ім'я Везельвула, оце у нас Візелбаб. Да, на екрані другий рядок. Мабуть, якийсь фермер, що повісився, не дочекавшись доброго врожаю. Саме вчасно. Чи досить захопив хустинок, бо тут попріти, ой, як доведеться. Знову стукіт. Гупай собі, гупай. Тобто це нок-нок перекладається як гупай собі, гупай. Хто там? В ім'я іншого диявола. Отут так, да? Other devil's name. Далі. А це дворушник, що присягався за обидві сторони проти кожної. Оце evocator, це той, хто і вашим, і нашим, і на вечір дома. In Ukrainian it is дворушник, the person who is for both parties. Він з радами світ пройшов задля слави Божої, але неба так і не перехитрував. Заходь, дворушнику, стукіт за сценою.
Great.
I have translated.
Thank
Not
you.
I, but the professional translator reproduced this scene in our 6-volume complete works of Shakespeare. Okay,
That is
let's go on.
amazing. And since I understand Ukrainian much better than I speak it, I was able to follow, and it seems to be a very excellent translation to me. Pavlo has also dropped in the chat some other ideas about the word equivocate, but it absolutely means to speak in two ways. And this refers to very specific situation after the assassination attempt on King James in 1605. Next slide, yeah. The passage refers to the trial in 1606 of a Jesuit priest, a Catholic priest of the Jesuit order named Henry Garnet. Garnet had published a few years earlier a book that aimed at helping Catholics who were being interrogated. In those days, Catholics were being persecuted by the government, and he was helping them to manage when they get arrested or when they get put on trial. His book is called A Treatise on Equivocation, a book about equivocation. In this book, Garnet gives examples on how to answer questions ambiguously, using two meanings. Oh, there's a double meaning in that. Or with misleading emphasis, or saying part of an answer but not the entire answer, so that when a Catholic was under oath and in court, he could avoid being convicted of a crime and thus avoid the sin of perjury, because the Catholic does not want to lie under oath and then go to hell. So it's just like so there's the idea of going to hell, which is also in Macbeth. So if a Catholic was asked, do you have any priests hidden here? A Catholic might say, no, because he's thinking, I don't have priests, plural, I only have one priest, singular. Or he might think, well, I don't have any priests here. I know that my father does, or my wife does, or my husband does, etc. So these answers were very misleading, but Henry Garnet wrote in his book that a Catholic was allowed to answer in these misleading ways, to equivocate in order to avoid punishment. So those ideas were used by some of the gunpowder plotters when they were on trial in 1606, and indeed, they were used by Garnet himself when he went on trial. Only weeks before Macbeth opened, he was convicted of treason. The porter mentions treason, doesn't he? The Catholics thought they were committing treason for God's sake. They thought it was a holy purpose in committing treason, and etc. Elsewhere in the play, by the way, Shakespeare uses the word equivocation to refer to the language of the witches. And so the language of the Catholics, the Jesuits, is also used to talk about the witches. I pull in resolution and begin to doubt the equivocation of the fiend that lies like truth. It's at the bottom of the previous slide, Natalia. It's at the very bottom there. I sneaked it in the bottom. I pull in resolution and begin to doubt the equivocation of the fiend that lies as if it were truth. So another use of equivocation there. So moving right along, we can go to, so as I say, if you don't understand the historical context of the gunpowder plot and the Jesuits, then when the porter says an equivocator, it would make no sense. And indeed, if the dramaturg is assisting the director with research long before rehearsals start, the director might find that context important. if the production is staged in period costume and a general 1606 style, the director might ask the dramaturg to write a note about that historical context to put in the program, so the audience will have an understanding of the speech. On the other hand, if the director is using modern dress or setting the play in another time, in another place, in another language, the director might decide just to remove the part about the equivocator. You know, this is about something that happened in 1606 and it's not important to my production, so maybe just remove that part. The porter's part is already brief, but it could get briefer, or maybe change it. Since Shakespeare in 1606 might have added the entire porter's part, or at least the part about the equivocator, at the very end of his writing process, specifically to take advantage of the fact that everyone in London was talking about these trials, the director might decide to add something similarly relevant to recent history. I could imagine a production in Ukraine that could find, oh, I don't know, somebody that you could talk about as being sent into hell. Another point of historical relevance for Macbeth would be the recent accession of King James. King James had just come to the throne in 1603, technically, but he didn't have the formal coronation until 1604 because of the plague. Shakespeare, perhaps because he had been asked to do so, or perhaps just because he thought it would be wise, wrote quite a few things right after James came to the throne that would be of special interest to King James. In Macbeth, we have a Scottish setting, of course, and we know that King James was interested in witchcraft, and so we have that as well. But more specifically, Shakespeare takes the character of Banquo. Banquo is mentioned in Holinshed's Chronicles, which was Shakespeare's favorite source for historical information. And Shakespeare makes Banquo a very positive character because Banquo was supposedly the ancestor of King James. Now, there may never have been a person named Banquo, but King James believed that he was descended from Banquo. So, in the scene where Macbeth goes to visit the witches and they warn him, there we go, thank you, they warn him, seek to know no more. He says, nope, I want to see it anyway. They show him a procession of kings, the last one holding a mirror. Do you want to read that, Natalia?
Shall I read it in Ukrainian?
Yeah. Tell me if your art, you don't have to read the, oh, yeah, actually start with Yet My Heart Throbs, maybe. Yeah. This is Macbeth speaking.
Just a moment. All and Macbeth, yes.
Act 4, Scene 1.
Beginning or middle part of the scene, because it is very, very long here.
Yes.
Where? In the middle or at the end?
It is a little bit after the middle. You can see all the witches.
Middle, so we have, всередині цієї сцени ми маємо таку комбінацію. Макбет говорить, коли з'являється третій привид, не бувати цьому повік, дерева не солдати, це його таке застереження, коли ліс іде, там, пам'ятаєте, да, ситуацію. Вірнамський ліс ще не рушає, царюй Макбете, в супокої має твій шлях земний під сяєвом вінця, тривати до природного кінця. Але скажіть мені лише одно, якщо усе вам віддати дано, чи царюватиме в державі нашій рід Банко. Ну, як сказав уже Джо Стівенсон, король Яків вважав, що він же був у нас Джеймс VI шотландський і Джеймс І англійський. Тобто до того, як стати королем Англії, він був королем Шотландії. І він себе вважав нащадком Банко. І от саме про цей момент йдеться. Всі кажуть, годі більше не розпитуй. Це кажуть відповідь Макбетові. А Макбет каже, я хочу знати, не скажете мені, Прокляттям затаврую вас навіки. Де чан? І що за шум удалині? I have just translated.
Yes, again, I'm very impressed with the translation. And now the stage direction, which is at the bottom of the page. Please.
З'являються привиди 8 королів. Останній з них з дзеркалом у руці. За ним іде дух Банко. Eighth king with a glass.
Exactly.
Дослівно. Це повністю еквівалентний переклад.
Дякую. So, this stage direction, indeed, this entire final prophecy, may relate only to a performance at court, since King James would have been, of course, at a royal performance at his palace. The eighth king, holding the mirror, would know exactly where to hold it. He would hold it so that King James could have seen his own image in the mirror, as he was supposedly the eighth generation descendant. In English, we would say the great, 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 great grandson of Banquo. Now, knowing this very specific reason that the final prophecy and the procession of kings appear, some directors choose to cut it or just not have the mirror, because the mirror is there to catch King James's reflection. So, as I said, Shakespeare tried to okay, so thinking a bit more deeply about the historical context rather than the precise details, we realize that, of course, the reason James rose to the throne was the death of Elizabeth I. I was just mentioning how the play seems to be flattering to James by portraying his ancestor in a positive light. But Shakespeare was very fond of double meanings, and we do not think of Shakespeare as an author who merely tried meekly to please the reigning monarch. Some of his plays imply criticism of the English society, criticism of the institution of monarchy, likewise in Macbeth. If you think about it, even though the witches and the Scottish history and Banquo on stage would have pleased James greatly, take a step back and you can look at the larger structure of the play and you see this. As the play opens, there is an aging ruler who has been universally admired and is considered very good. This ruler has fought off foreign invasions, has dealt with treachery at home. This great ruler dies. At first, it's a bit unclear who the next ruler will be. But when the new ruler takes over, it soon becomes clear that this new ruler is a terrible ruler. Understand? Old ruler, very good. New ruler, very bad. Could this possibly be Shakespeare's commentary on the sort of change of monarchs that England has just experienced? Everyone agreed that Queen Elizabeth was a very good king. And by 1606, some people were already thinking, maybe James is very bad. Because of certain reasons, which if we had more time, we could talk about that. So there's an example of how the historical context of a play can be relevant to our understanding. It's not just these very specific things about Banquo being the ancestor, but when you change rulers from one to the other, that can sometimes be a good change, or it can be a very bad change. And that could be very relevant when you're staging a Shakespeare play. And a good dramaturg perhaps already knows these things. Otherwise, any dramaturg can research these things. The material at the front of an Arden play or another good edition would go into these details. Okay, the third thing that I mentioned earlier was a performance history of the play. A general history of how the play has been produced in theaters. Again, good editions of the plays in English, like the Arden Shakespeare and the New Cambridge Shakespeare, contain some details about certain important productions. For some plays, some of the most popular ones, and I will use the example of King Lear today, we know a lot about how they have been performed through history, as it turns out. For some other plays, like All's Well That Ends Well or Troilus and Cressida, we know almost nothing about the earliest performances and maybe nothing at all until the 20th century. So in cases like that, the dramaturg is lucky because he has less work to do for the performance history. But to give a couple of examples of the performance history of a play, let's think about King Lear. We know that the first recorded performance of the play was on December 26th, 1606, at Whitehall Palace for King James and the royal court as part of the Christmas festivities. Note that I said the first recorded performance of the play when Shakespeare's company, the King's Men, as they were called in King James's day, performed at court. There often was a record. The company was paid. Some important people present may have written something in a letter or in a diary, etc. But of course, most of the plays would have premiered during the spring, fall, summer at the Globe Theatre. They did not play in winter at the Globe, as it was basically an outdoor venue with no roof. But back to that first recorded performance, it's interesting to think that King James was sitting there on his throne at Whitehall Palace after a nice holiday dinner and drinks, and his two sons, Henry and Charles, were sitting beside him. With that in mind, let's look at the very first line of the play.
Shall I translate?
Yes.
Yes. So, і так, початок першої сцени першого акта в «Королі Лірі» я б хотіла від себе додати. Чому це для нас дуже важливо? Тому що у Шекспіра дуже часто були такі алюзії до того, що відбувалося в його країні саме в цей час. І от Джо зараз нам на конкретних прикладах це демонструє. Тому, коли ми бачимо, наприклад, імпровізації у вустах Олексія Гнатковського, який, скажімо, який грає, наприклад, Гамлета у Держипільського, і там з'являються якісь алюзії до нашої політичної реальності. Ну, це абсолютно шекспірівський театр. I have just mentioned that Олексій Гнатковський included some hints on the contemporary situation.
Це розумів.
Перша сцена першого акту починається зі слів Кента. Я гадав, що королеві нашому герцог Олбенійський миліший за герцога Корнуельського. І тут родинні, зараз Джо нам розкаже родинні стосунки з королем Яковом. I suppose that you will tell us why King had more affected the Duke of Albany.
Yes. All right. So in English it says, I thought the king affected the Duke of Albany more than Cornwall. That's related to the English word affection, which you know, which means loved, right? And this play has a... So what does it say in Ukrainian? Not exactly love, любов.
Миліший. It is too close. It is too dear to the heart. Something like that.
I like it. I like it. Okay. So this play has a lot to say about who loves whom, right? Who is dear to whom. And some people... I'm going to skip just a little bit of this. But so interesting to think that Shakespeare put in that line maybe right before the Whitehall Palace performance in 1606. And maybe he had to ask permission to give that line, because who was sitting there at that first performance? The king and his two sons, the Duke of Albany and the Duke of Cornwall. I thought the king liked the Duke of Albany more than the Duke of Cornwall. Again, as I was saying regarding Macbeth above, surely King James believed he was being flattered by such mentions. On the other hand, a king who plays favorites among his children, as King James absolutely did, and who sometimes acted erratically, and who loved to keep company with unruly drunken knights around him, that can sometimes turn out badly. But skipping a lot of details and hitting just a few highlights, let me mention a couple of other things about so that was the original, the absolute, first context of the performance. But now going forward in history a little bit, the ending of the play is famously very sad, very dark, very bleak. Samuel Johnson, the 18th century writer and scholar who edited Shakespeare's plays, said that he read the final scene of the play only once. He loved the play, but he could not read the final scene. Only once was enough. Well, since many had noticed this problem of the ending being too sad, the English playwright Nahum Tate had a solution for that. Next slide. You all remember that in 1642, 26 years after Shakespeare's death, the theaters were all closed during Oliver Cromwell's Puritan Commonwealth. They remained closed for 18 years and then reopened in 1660, and things were very different. The monarchy, as Natalia mentioned before, had been restored when Charles II took the throne in 1660. We call the period from 1660 to 1700 the Restoration period, when the monarchy was restored after 18 years of no kings. Many plays of the Renaissance period were rewritten to better fit the tastes of the Restoration period, including Shakespeare's plays. And Nahum Tate decided to fix the problems with the tragedy of King Lear, especially the ending with his famous 1681 version of the play. Oh no, go back one, Natalia, unless I have my slides mixed up again. Yeah, oh, there, oh, yeah. So actually I have Nahum Tate's version in the bottom right corner here. Shakespeare called it the tragedy of King Lear, and Nahum Tate decided to call it the history of King Lear. It's from 1681. So you can stay on that slide for a minute. Tate's version omits the interesting character of the fool because in the Restoration, people thought that having a fool in a serious play was not a good thing, and it has a happy ending. King Lear is restored to the throne. Cordelia marries Edgar, and they all live happily ever after. And that's a big change. We talked a little bit about this ending last year at the Ukrainian Shakespeare Festival with Serge, the theater fishing. So, but we generally credit David Garrick, whose picture you see here, with going back to Shakespeare's own texts. He was a very popular actor from the 18th century, and he found he in many of his performances, and he was a manager as well as an actor. In many of the plays that he put on, he would use Shakespeare's own texts from the first folio, and mostly he would avoid those restoration versions of the plays that had changed so much. However, history shows that Garrick really did enjoy Tate's version of King Lear. He liked the happy ending, and he was quite famous for playing Lear. In the color picture, you see David Garrick wearing a wig and wearing flowers in his hair. Wearing flowers and weeds in one's hair is a symbol of madness. You also see a picture of him standing on stage, gesturing, playing King Lear. And so he was well known for playing King Lear, but he mostly played Nahum Tate's version. However, later in life, he began to consider himself a priest of Shakespeare, and indeed he helped people understand the idea of the importance of using Shakespeare's texts. So, since that was his what he was famous for, he was a priest of Shakespeare. He called Shakespeare the god of our idolatry, using Juliet's phrase. He even set up a little temple to Shakespeare in his garden. That's the real temple. You can still visit it today. It's in Hampton, near London. He gradually began to add in more and more, but not all, of Shakespeare's text into King Lear. He still kept the happy ending. He still left out the fool. It seems that the first performer after 1680 to perform King Lear using only Shakespeare's text and include the character of the fool, include the heartbreaking ending, was William Macready in 1838, by the way. I'm trying to go a little quicker here. Earlier in the 19th century, there had been a time when King Lear was banned. So this is an important part of the performance history of the play. King George III, never a favorite of the Americans. We had a revolution against George III, but he famously was going mad starting in about 1788. And in 1810, out of respect to the king, who was he had completely lost his mind by that time, the performance of King Lear was banned. The ban was lifted after King George's death in 1820, and both professional companies in London staged a version of, oh yeah, that's Macready there. So both professional companies staged Shakespeare's version of King Lear later in 1820. There's no shortage of 20th and 21st century productions, of course, and there are plenty of sites online to look for more information and reviews. This is the easy part of being a dramaturg, looking for recent productions. Nowadays, you can usually find online recordings of live performances, as well as films that show a wide variety of interpretations. Next, I am not going to discuss in detail the Marxist-influenced 1970 Soviet film by Grigory Kozintsev. Kozintsev, because I know that you have access to the film and information about it yourselves. The only reason I am going to mention him today mention that film at all is because you may or may not know that Kozintsev was born in the town of Novozibkiv, which was then part of the Chernihiv Governorate, although now part of Bryansk Oblast in Russia. Indeed, Kozyntsev's family moved to Kyiv when, let's call him Hrihori, not Grigory, was 8. Perhaps you know this already. His mother, Anna Luri, was a Jewish Ukrainian from a prominent Kyiv family. Both of his parents were respected doctors in Kyiv. Kozintsev, saying it in Ukrainian now, moved to Kyiv at age 8 and studied at Kyiv-Pechersk Gymnasium, and then at school number 5 in Pechersk. He studied theater at this building. Do you recognize it? It's now the Ivan Franko National Academic Drama Theater in Kyiv, although in that day it was known by another name, before eventually, of course you know, he moved to Russia. This is the same Kozintsev who ended up directing a very famous Hamlet film, which won several international prizes. I just mentioned that as an example of the kind of thing that can be relevant when studying Shakespeare in Ukraine. Now, quickly moving on to 2 other films here. Next slide. Peter Brook was a famous British theater director and scholar on theatrical methods. I don't know if his book called The Empty Space is ever studied in Ukraine or translated into Ukrainian, but it's absolutely brilliant on theory of theater. It's absolutely brilliant. If you can get it, I recommend it. He directed a disturbing and bleak production of King Lear starring Paul Scofield in the title role. Brooke had read Polish theorist Jan Kot's essay, King Lear or Endgame, which says that King Lear is a sort of absurdist play. Brooke chose to film on the flat, wintry plains of Denmark in black and white. That's very obvious when you begin to watch the film. What might take you a minute to realize, something seems kind of strange, and then you realize that the film uses no background music at all, which is absolutely unheard of course, today. And even back in that time, all films have some music in them. And this contributes to a rather off-balance feeling one has while watching the film. Irene Worth as Goneril is absolutely fabulous, as well as Susan Engel as Regan in this film. If you're looking for the most tragic version of King Lear, this film might be it. A good contrast to Brooks' film, next, is Trevor Nunn's 2008 film, starring Ian McKellen in the title role. Yeah, so here we have Ian McKellen, a couple of images from Ian McKellen's film. No, back. Yeah, this is it. This is from the film. This is 2008, and it stars Ian McKellen as King Lear and Sylvester McCoy as the Fool. Has some McKellen and McCoy have very good chemistry, and that's one of the things this film is known for, being a really great example of the Fool. In contrast to Brooks' outdoor scenes, none films the play on what is very clearly a soundstage. Look at that. Look at that scene with the tree and the grass there. Perhaps you can see that that's obviously a stage. It's not really outside. So it sort of reminds you that, after all, this is just a play. This is just a film. This is just a story. And it's not real, in contrast to the very real emotions of the actors, like Ian McKellen. In another contrast to Brooks' dark vision, none choose to emphasize the good characters and show a world with both evil and good, both despair and hope. Romola Garai as Cordelia is very noble and likable. The part of Cordelia, by the way, is underwritten. I don't mean to criticize Shakespeare, but it can be hard to make Cordelia actually likable, but this film does a good job with that. The film is closely based on a 2007 production, theater production with the same cast in Stratford-upon-Avon. This detail is interesting enough, I think, to include in the film and on stage and in the film. Ian McKellen wears 2 wedding rings, one on each hand. When people asked him about this, or even when they didn't ask him about this, he told them that, well, this ring is from my marriage to Goneril and Regan's mother. And this ring is from my marriage to Cordelia's mother. Very interesting interpretation by McKellen, which helps explain why Cordelia is so very different from her sisters. And McKellen used to say, maybe when King Lear looks into Cordelia's face, he sees the face of the woman he loved so much 20 years earlier, or something like that. Now, moving on to live productions, we have another Ian McKellen King Lear. King Lear starred in a limited engagement of King Lear in 2018 at the Duke of York Theatre in London. This production, in modern dress, seemed to relate to contemporary political turmoil. Sinead Cusack, who played Kent, you see Sinead Cusack there in the white jacket, when she played Kent as a woman advisor to King Lear. Of course, it's normal to have a woman advisor in modern dress production. And she said in interviews that she would whisper the word Brexit to the actors playing Gloucester and Edmund right before the lights came up every night and they started the play. McKellen, age 79, later when Kent goes into hiding, he has to disguise himself. And so Cusack's disguise is as a man. And so that way the rest of the play makes sense with Lear speaking as if he's a man, because Cusack is disguised as a man. It works very well, actually. McKellen, age 79, when he performed this role, did it in a more restrained manner, much more despairing at times than the performance 11 years earlier. However, the play still ended on a somewhat hopeful note, because Cusack as Kent, along with a very strong Anthony Howell as Albany, and Luke Thompson as Edgar, these represent the 3 good people from the play, unfortunately minus Cordelia. Those 3 linger a moment at the edge of the stage in the light at the end of the play as they talk about the future of England. Now, the last production I will mention in this very brief performance history is at the Globe Theatre in 2022 with Catherine Hunter playing the title role. So yes, nowadays not only do we have women playing women, unlike Shakespeare's stage, but we have women often playing men. And she played King Lear as a man. She dressed up like a man, which is fine. She's a great actor, and she's able to do that quite easily. Michelle Terry, the artistic director of the Globe, played both the Fool and Cordelia. This is a doubling that can easily be done because the characters never appear on stage together. The production was affected by many problems. The opening night turned out to be a COVID super spreader event, and both Catherine Hunter and Michelle Terry got the virus. So did I. I was there to review the production for the journal Shakespeare. And there were many other problems. An actress broke her arm when she fell off the stage. It was a lot of problems. Hunter's voice was noticeably weak when she returned after COVID. The production featured Ryan Donaldson as a tall, very handsome Edmund, who convincingly seduced both Goneril and Regan. Michelle Terry wore an elegant ivory-colored gown. In the photo you see here, it looks pure white, but as I remember, it was the color of ivory and very elegant, with a little split on the side of the dress. You can see the split there already. Then Michelle changed into a pair of colorful checkered trousers when she played the Fool. However, after the Fool died in the middle of the play, Michelle Terry, as Cordelia, continued to wear the checkered trousers very obviously, very clearly under her Cordelia gown, which was partly open, and you could see the trousers. At several moments, and especially when Cordelia died, the trousers were very visible, and for some reason, it was very poignant. It was very emotional to see those trousers. What Michelle Terry had done was connect the understated, soft-spoken Cordelia. As I mentioned, it's a character that audiences may find difficult to like. She connected Cordelia to the Fool, whom everybody likes. The Fool is energetic and funny and appealing. And so Michelle Terry ended up making both characters more meaningful by combining them like that, which was truly brilliant. All right, now back to our topic for today, the dramaturg as a collaborative creative role in a theater production. Often, excellent theaters are located not so far away from an academic institution, a university, and there may be someone there who can serve as a dramaturg. I'm not saying that just because that is my story. I'm a professor and I often serve as a dramaturg. It is fairly common for someone from a local university to be called upon to talk with the director about a production. The Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford-upon-Avon has often consulted with faculty like Tiffany Stern or, of course, Michael Dobson, a friend of Ukrainian Shakespeare, or graduate students from the Institute to do research. And I think I will skip a couple of sentences here. There are examples where the director may ask a very specific question of Martin or Greg, and that's nice. However, it is just absolutely common for a director or for one of the actors to have a question about some aspect of the play during the rehearsal. And there are people often associated with the university, whether the theater department or the literature department, who can help. And it's not uncommon for a professor like myself to be better at the logical head knowledge part. I'm not an expert at acting or directing, but the combination of expertise between the academic and the creative, the theater professional, can be very useful. And so I am proposing that we consider having more such relationships between trained academics and trained theater professionals. And since I am here at the Shakespeare Association of America meeting to talk about original practices, I think you can go on to the next slide, probably, or I'm here to talk about original practices or historically informed practices in the theater. I hope it doesn't sound strange if I say that for plays written by Shakespeare, having an expert present for the reading and rehearsing of the plays is definitely an original practice. After all, as we know, Shakespeare was not just a writer, he was a financial shareholder in the King's Men, and he was an actor in the King's Men. It may be that he played a character like the ghost in Hamlet. It may be that he played a character like Adam in As You Like It. After all, since he was there as a shareholder and an actor, if someone in the company did not understand a line, or if they were saying a certain line wrong, I'm sure that Shakespeare was able to answer questions and correct them. And as I close today, I will give just a list of some of the ways that I often I go back to the other slide because I want people to be able to get that information if they would like it. I will end by saying these are some things that I sometimes do. Besides those three broad categories of knowledge that I offer when I'm a dramaturg, here's some others. Here's how that happens in a more practical level. Sometimes, but not always, the dramaturg is asked by the director to help produce a cut text, a shorter text of the play. I'm sure you all know that Shakespeare's plays are usually cut in performance nowadays. There is evidence that they were also cut in Shakespeare's day, by the way. The folio texts are the uncut plays, whereas the quarto texts are the plays that are cut. And that has been written on by Andy Gurr, but Andrew Gurr is a great scholar as well. So sometimes the dramaturg can help or can provide the cut play of the text. Whether involved in a cut or not, the dramaturg will often prepare a booklet for the cast. In that booklet, surprise, surprise, includes the definitions of hard words, pronunciations of all the names in the play. The booklet can give general information about the verse if the director wants. Of course, historical information and performance history as well. Ideally, this booklet is given out before the actors start memorizing their lines because the information the dramaturg shares can help with their pronunciation and their understanding. The dramaturg is usually asked to be at the first read-through of the script, perhaps the first meeting where all of the actors and designers and director, everybody meets together, and the dramaturg is usually there as well, so that he or she can answer any questions while the actors read. I would also sit there with my script and mark all the words that were mispronounced or all the lines that seemed to be causing problems during that reading, then send an email to the director with notes about those issues. Sometimes that's basically all the dramaturg does. Just that first meeting, that booklet, that first meeting, the work before rehearsal begins. But sometimes still the director will call or email with a question during rehearsal. I can call that version of being a dramaturg a preparatory dramaturg, maybe. You get everything ready for the first reading, but then you're finished and you hope for the best. However, it's very nice if the director invites the dramaturg to be at the first week or the first 2 weeks of rehearsals as well. Very often the actors will have more questions at rehearsal that they didn't realize they should have asked at the first reading. And very often the same words that were mispronounced at the reading will be mispronounced later on and still need attention. Sometimes as a dramaturg, I've been asked to act as a prompter to follow the script, and if someone misses a line, call it out. Sometimes I've been asked to help find period music for one of the songs in the play. Before I was an academic specialist in Shakespeare, I was a school teacher and I taught music. So I have a master's degree in music as well. Sometimes I've been asked to write an essay or a summary for the program. Sometimes I've been asked to do a pre-show lecture, a lecture before the opening show about a relevant topic, or very often I'm asked to lead question and answer at the end of the show. And speaking of questions and answers, I'm now ready to take yours. Thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Joe. And while our audience is going to put a question, I would like to express my gratitude not only for the beautiful and interesting and innovative information we have got from your lecture, but also for the accent, how important the collaboration, the combination of expertise of academic staff and theater practitioners or theater professionals is. And it seems to me that it's a good way to improve the situation in Ukrainian theater if our theater practitioners, I mean directors, actors, and the people who prepare performance on the stage will invite the specialists in Shakespeare and the specialist in theater, in the history of the performances, to share their experience, maybe to prompt something, maybe to ask some questions. And it seems to me that in some years we will have a special option in our theater life, the person who is called Dramaturg. I don't know exactly, and it's a problem for our translation studies specialists,
Exactly.
how to
Yeah.
translate it, because we really have a false friend of the translator when we speak about Dramaturg. Maybe we will find the option that is suitable for the Ukrainian language, but the most important is that very accent, that collaboration between the representatives of different spheres, different specialities, which are united by the name of Shakespeare, by the umbrella that is called arts in the most general sense. It will be very fruitful, useful, convenient, comfortable for both sides, and probably very constructive as for creating new meanings and interesting decisions. By the way, I'd like to mention that in the version of King Lear, staged on the left in the theater on the left bank of the Dnieper River, we have the same situation with Cordelia and Clown, and we have, one person who played both roles, and we have almost the same situation. It is very interesting.
Wow, great.
The director of this performance is Dmytro Zakhozenko, who staged King Lear in Kiev. It was the first night, the premiere was in April 2025, and it is still in the repertoire. And I'd like to invite all the people from Ukraine who are able to go to this performance in Kiev to enjoy it, because it seems to me, it's my personal opinion, that this performance is very successful. And now we start our questions, and we can see them in the chat, or you may raise your hand, please. You're welcome, dear colleagues, dear friends, your questions. Pavlo Bossi, you're welcome, dear colleague.
Thank you so much. Best wishes from Toronto. Thank you so much for such a wonderful, engaging, interesting presentation. And my particular thanks for resurrecting the character of the porter from the Scottish play. I encountered in my own practice that directors refuse to keep the character. Yes, they very often cut it, not necessarily for the reason that related to particular events from begun years, but because they find him too funny. And they want to keep the tragedy pure, such as it exists in the Shakespearean canon.
Yes.
Which is, well, sensitivity was different those days, obviously, and there are comical moments and characters in all of the tragedies, and as for
Yes.
comedies, I'm just wondering if we can translate some of the puns, even if we are able to do that, would we dare? Particularly some like the pun from, for instance, for the title, the Much Ado About Nothing. Are we going to translate that? Will be taken to the court for public indecency. Yeah, so, but my question is, that's about Dramaturg. By the way, I'm also trying to find an equivalent in Ukrainian practice, and I think Zavlit is the closest one. It literally the chair of the literary department of this particular theater, which means a little less responsibility. They're usually just trying to find new plays, and very often they're practicing playwrights. But in terms of official description, that's probably the closest. But my question, actually two questions if you don't mind. So when Lessing is very often credited as the one who invented the position and called himself dramaturg, do you think that those days it was closer to the contemporary understanding of what dramaturg is, or it was rather another word for stage director? That's one question. And if you don't mind. And the second one is in the current big scheme of things, if a theater is committed to sort of reconstruct the OP, do you think the original pronunciation business would be the business or responsibility of a dramaturg, or it still belongs to the domain of the dialect coach? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Great question. Dramaturg, as far as we know, the word is basically German, and as I've stated, the word has more than one meaning in various European languages. And actually, I'm about to say in 2 hours, let's stop using the term original practices. Let's instead say historically performed practices. And maybe it's time, I mean, it's a little bit late because the word is very common now in England and still in Germany. We say dramaturg, but maybe I offered a couple of ideas earlier: literary manager, consultant, researcher. Some of those, I think that's definitely needed in Ukraine. Otherwise, people will not understand what is being said. So I don't know that it was what we would call in English a stage manager. I think it usually had something. It had more to do, I believe, with the text of a play. That's the common thread with all of these meanings, except the common Ukrainian meaning of I help the theater do things. That's the first time I've heard that. But otherwise, whether it's writing, translating, commenting, it always has to do with the text of the play. I think that should be the common thread. But yes, as what to say about that, who knows? Yeah, translating puns is always difficult in any language, and sometimes you just have to make a choice. And by the way, 99% of audiences in America do not understand the pun in the title of Much Ado About Nothing. Nothing means nothing. It also means noting, meaning perceiving. I note that, or playing music, because the word appears when Balthazar is playing the song, and also nothing. No thing is, as you said, it's a little bit of a, it's not, it's a polite way of saying female sex organs. So it's got at least 4 meanings. And so, yeah. So, you have to choose sometimes. That's part of the fun of doing Shakespeare.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's really very interesting, and probably the members of our audience will really try to find the connotations and the second meanings of the word nothing in Shakespeare's time. And it is almost impossible to translate this pun, because usually we have the title «Багато галасу з нічого», and this нічого has no sexual connotations at all.
No.
Well,
yeah.
And thank you very much for your answer. I suppose that Pavlo is satisfied with it, yeah? And there is a question in our chat.
Yes.
Bilayev Bogdan, could you reproduce your question maybe, because it is too long?
Oh, I have noticed it's at the end. Bogdan has a particular question about when you go to the website, it says you can do Google Play or the Apple Store. I I am an iPhone guy and I use the Apple Store. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. The first recommendation I would have would be to try on your phone rather than your computer. It might be for the phone exactly. Otherwise, as far as I know, it's a fairly new app, so maybe they're still working on it. Sorry, I recommended something that may not work exactly. But you can find, if you're a little bit sneaky, you can find copies of the book, All the Words on Stage, online. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but you can find some of these resources online as well. Also, you ask in the chat, which Banquo is James's supposed ancestor? Well, who knows? Because you know, it probably wasn't even a real ancestor. And which of the 6 volumes? John Hooker and Richard Stanihurst. Well, the Holinshed's Chronicles that I'm talking about is it's written by a guy named Holinshed, and I believe there's only 1 volume, and he talks mostly about England, but he does talk about Scotland. You can just search the online text of Holinshed's Chronicles for the word Banquo or for the word I believe he says nymphs. I believe Holinshed describes the witches as nymphs, Nymphs, and it'll take you straight to where that part of Holinshed is. It's a very short account. You know, Shakespeare takes 1 paragraph of text and turns it into a brilliant 5-act play. And Shakespeare does not apologize for making changes in the sources. And his audience knew this, by the way. Even if they didn't know Scottish history very well, they did know English history. And so they would have known when in a play like, say, Henry V, when he goes into France and we get the impression that these wars lasted, you know, a week or 2. They would have known it lasted years, and many other such things. The details that Shakespeare changes in English history would have been very evident to them, but he's more interested in the story than being an accurate history book.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I suppose that your information is extremely important, not only for Bogdan, but also for some other members of our audience, how to find what to do with the apps. And thank you very much for historic information dealing with this very play and Shakespeare's attitude to history and his not ability, but his typical practice of changing something and changing much in English history, with the English history in his plays, it's better to say. And I see the hand of Irina Kashirina, Zaporizhia National University, Zaporizhska Polytechnica. You're welcome, Irina.
Good evening. Thank you for brilliant interpretation of William Shakespeare. And my question is quite simple, really. Would you like to consult not a director, but a translator of plays by William Shakespeare, of his sonnets and so on?
I could think about that. The matter is, my expertise my knowledge of Ukrainian cannot be called expertise. It's very minimal. So the consultation would have to do with, well, remember when you translate this line to try to get this idea across and not just that idea. So it can be fruitful to consult with any sort of theater professional. Generally, I think of myself as working for the director, but you know, it's possible. Collaboration is always a good thing.
Thank you for your answer. As far as I have already translated all the sonnets by William Shakespeare, so I appreciate each and every idea of yours So next time when I will possibly proceed, I will use your ideas.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
gets
Thank
back
you for your
to,
collaboration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Joe, for your answer. And the
Yeah.
next question is from Marina Burzik. You're welcome, Marina.
Thank you. I'll try to, I don't know, I'll try to like formulate it, but I'm not sure that it's gonna be correct. So I'm just so impressed by your presentation and but by all the information you said, and I'm so thankful for that. And I want to ask you, like, we have some problems with understanding of Shakespeare dramas and of some theater performances because of like different translations and a difference in the meanings in the different languages, and also the due of lack of knowledge about some historical processes that were at that time, and we are not sure that we can understand the era of Shakespeare. We can't comprehend like Shakespeare's works in Ukraine as they are presented and as they are understood by English people now, and as they were understood in Shakespeare's time. Of course, even in this time, like even in England, is that's a different understanding of those dramas. Yeah, and when some Ukrainian directors change plays by changing the context of Shakespeare's dramas, already Natalia said about some dramaturg who about director who changed like the historical line from England to Ukrainian one, and that doesn't change the plot, the script, but it changed maybe meaning and maybe the understanding by Ukrainians, because we can maybe greatly feel that text and feel the drama, because it's goes with our thoughts and with our feelings and with our history, but it's means that it's stopped to be Shakespeare's drama for that moment. Like we have the same ideas, but we have the different maybe tools to introduce them. So what do you think about it if we have some abilities to feel Shakespeare's drama in right way and to understand it completely how it must be understood by people? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good question. You spoke of using a translation, spoke of maybe a director will change one line or leave out a line. There is we all know there is a thing called translating. In the translation that Natalia was reading, I was very struck by the accuracy of the translation. It seems extremely careful to make it, correct. Sometimes that's what you want, the exact right meaning. Sometimes, honestly, if the lines are supposed to create a certain feeling, a translator may choose to put in more beautiful words, even if the meaning changes slightly. There are certain speeches in Shakespeare, like Gertrude describing Ophelia's death, or Theseus describing the bank where the wild thyme grows when he tells Puck how to use the flower. There are certain speeches that are just so achingly beautiful that it's very important to reproduce a poetic quality when translating, and I think that's absolutely fine. The same applies to translating the Iliad or the Odyssey or the Bible or anything else. Now, at a certain point, a person who has an idea about, a vision about a Shakespeare play can make an adaptation. I don't know if you have the same word in Ukrainian, but an adaptation of a play means it's a new vision and a new version of the play. There's a very
We
famous.
have this word adaptacja, of course. There
Okay,
is
that's
this
what I
word.
thought. One of the most famous for me is Shakespeare has the play Romeo and Juliet, and then we have a famous play and a famous film called West Side Story about Spanish-speaking immigrants in New York City. I think it's a famous film around the world. And that is no longer Romeo and Juliet. It is an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and it's brilliant. There can be, if you do Shakespeare's plays in English, you can see a brilliant production of King Lear. You can see a terrible production of King Lear. If you translate King Lear into Ukrainian, you can see a brilliant production of Korol Lear. You can see a terrible production of Korol Lear. If you adapt King Lear into, there's a play called The Dresser. I don't know if that's known in Ukraine, or there's a novel called and a film called 1,000 Acres. Anyway, there are adaptations of King Lear as well. You can have a brilliant adaptation of King Lear. You can have a terrible adaptation of King Lear. So performing in English is valid. Translating is valid. Adapting the text is valid. Doesn't mean it'll necessarily be good or bad, but I mean, everything's an adaptation. By the way, I was just speaking 5 minutes ago about Shakespeare adapting Holinshed's history to make Macbeth. A better example would be a play called King Lear, and on the title page of that play, it's spelled L-E-I-R in English, not L-E-A-R. I think it's called the Tragical History of King Lear, L-E-I-R, and his three daughters. And that is a play, probably from the mid-1590s, but for some reason it only got published in 1603, 1604. When it got published, Shakespeare grabbed that play and read it, and he said, oh yes, I can do something really good with this story. And by the way, the story of King Lear was also known in English history, almost certainly not factual history, but legend. And so he took that play, King Leir, by an unknown author. My friend Darren Freebury Jones says it was written by Thomas Kidd. I don't know. But, and he made it so much better. Shakespeare adapted King Lear and his three daughters into the tragedy of King Lear, which is the masterpiece that we know today. So it's nobody needs to feel offended if someone makes an adaptation of a Shakespeare play, because Shakespeare adapted most of his plays. He did not create the plot or characters for many of his plays at all, only 2 or 3.
Thank you very much. And we have not a question, but remark in our chat. It is from Professor Julia Vyshnitska from Kiev University, named after Boris Hrynchenko. So she writes, thank you to Professor Stephenson for this vivid, expressive, and elegant lecture. I also greatly appreciated your diction as a lecturer, and thank you for your attentiveness, for your particular interest to the word, as well as for such a thoughtful attitude towards Ukrainian translations of Shakespeare. It's really very, very pleasant. I can add from myself. Congratulations to all of us on the wonderful beginning of Shakespeare Days in Ukraine. I'm sorry, Yulia, but we started Shakespeare Days in Ukraine a little bit earlier with the lectures for our teenagers. They will participate in the contest dealing with illustrating their videos and photos with the help of Shakespeare quotations. So it started a little bit earlier, but for the grown-up audience, it is really the first day of Shakespeare Days in Ukraine, and we appreciate the collaboration with Kharkiv University of Arts very much. So I'm impressed by the long life of the project Ukrainian theater in the global context. she means the duration of this project. Kharkiv is constantly under Russian bombs, and yet you, the members from Kharkiv University and the students from Kharkiv, continue to bring such remarkable projects to life. And then he expresses her positive attitude to our Shakespeare Center and our work. Well, are there any other questions? I see something new in... there is information from Natalia Krynicka. It seems to me that she has just found the link for Bogdan Belyaev. How to get, am I right, Natalia? Because I have no possibility to check. What is it?
The page from Holinshed's Volume 5.
Great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
By the way,
welcome.
Thank you very much. And probably some persons would like to ask questions or to say something.
I'm perfectly happy to answer a couple more questions, but since somebody mentioned Holinshed, since Bogdan mentioned Holinshed, my friend Claire Mary-Louise Bourne and my friend Aaron Pratt, Aaron is from Texas and Claire is from Pennsylvania. They worked together. Well, Mary-Louise, really it was Claire or Mary-Louise who discovered Milton's copy of Shakespeare's first folio a couple of years ago, if you remember that. Someone had written in this first folio and she found out it was John Milton, which is amazing. And then she and Aaron found a copy of Holinshed's Chronicles in Arizona, which had the same handwriting in it. And it's like, well, this is obviously John Milton's copy of Holinshed. So it's very interesting. There's still research to do out there. There's still stuff to find out.
Wonderful. It's really very, very interesting that even now in the 21st century, we can get such discoveries dealing with Shakespeare, with English Renaissance, with the next epoch of Restoration, etc. So Kirill Tarasenko would like to express his gratitude to Professor Stephenson for wonderful lecture as well as for brilliant Ukrainian pronunciation. Thank you, Joe. So it's high time for us to say goodbye to each other, but thank you very much for your words. Slava Ukraini, Героям слава. We appreciate it very much, and I am absolutely sure, and I do believe that our collaboration will go on, and your participation in Shakespeare Days in Ukraine and in the conference, in the great project organized by my Kharkiv colleagues, will get and will produce beautiful results. It is very fruitful. Thank you very much. It is a real contribution of yours into our struggle against Russian barbarism for the victory in this terrible, horrible genocide war against Ukraine. So thank you very much to everybody who were, to all the audience which are engaged in our process. Thank you very much to everybody and to all of us to be together and to do what we must do in these dangerous times. And I hope that you will donate your money to the armed forces of Ukraine, to your maybe acquaintance, and maybe to those our military groups which need your help. So I do believe that we'll meet in a week maybe at the next event of Shakespeare Days in Ukraine, and I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Joseph Stephenson, to my colleagues from Kharkiv for this beautiful event. Thank you very much. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, пані Наталі. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, Natalia. It's a pleasure to see you with us. Bye-bye. Yeah. And I will believe that we will meet with you, John. in summer, maybe. Unfortunately, this year we have no Shakespeare Festival in Ivano-Frankivsk, as Rostislav Držipilsky told me a month ago that they are going to organize the third Shakespeare Festival in Ukraine next year, not every year, but in a year.
Okay.
Well, and I do believe that we'll meet there, but before it, we'll meet in Ukraine.
Yes.
earlier
Maybe
this
we
year.
can organize another event this summer when I'm in Ternopil.
Yes, okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Maybe
All right.
it will be online for Zaporizhia, for Kyiv, for
Sure.
Poltava, for
Of
Dnipro.
course.
I see that there are a lot of people from different universities all over Ukraine are present in our virtual room, and it's a real opportunity to communicate, to improve our knowledge, to exchange our emotions and our intellectual delight, maybe to share it. You have just shared it with us, and we appreciate it very much. So bye-bye.
Bye-bye all.
Bye-bye.